most memorable memory of me meeting Yemi, I think, because we talk about this quite a lot, and I try and remember this because everyone always asks this question. I think it was when Commission had their EP launch at Jesus House. I think it was the Up To You one, so I don't know if that was like in 2007 or 2008. I remember meeting him there via my friend Matty. We didn't have like a formal introduction. I just remember Matty saying, "Oh, that's Yemi, Opre's brother." So that's actually how I got to know who he was and what he did. And I think fast forward down into, so I always knew him as Yemi, Opre's brother. So fast forward to 2010 or 2011. I think it was 2011. So at my church, I attend Winners Chapel. We have a Valentine's ball we have for the youth. So I remember during the planning process, we were looking for a band. And I remember asking around, asking around my friends that, do you know a band that can come and play at our Valentine's dinner? I remember asking my friend Matty, and she gave me Yemi's number, and she said, "Oh yeah, he's got a band that plays. You can call him to come down." So I think I got his number, and I think I texted him, or I called him and I texted him, and he said, fill out he had a website for AAK. That was the I think the management of what he ran. I think he had like artists and a band under that label, or whatever you'll call it, AAK. So he said, "Oh, go onto the website and fill out the form." So I did. I filled out the form, filled out all the information regarding the Valentine's dinner, and then I think for about a week or so I heard nothing back, and I was thinking, this guy ain't serious. Like, he asked me to fill out a form and I haven't heard anything back. So I emailed him. I think I emailed him twice. And at this time they were like the only option that we had at that moment. I think there was a few other bands that we had contacted, but they weren't available. And I think part of my role at organising the Valentine's dinner was to find the band, and I think a DJ it was. So I needed to submit something quite quickly at church. So I think I called him. And he said, "Okay, sorry about that. I'll get back to you regarding that." So I think his PA called me at the time. And she called me and took down some details and things like that for the Valentine's dinner, and then we booked them, and then they played. So they played 2 years in a row. So during that period where they played 2 years in a row, so I think it was 2011 and probably 2012, Yemi and I got talking. So I think around that time it was about BlackBerry Messenger, so BBM. So we would just generally talk on BBM. Obviously we had the same circle of friends as well, so we knew kind of like the same circle of people. So we would just talk on BlackBerry Messenger. It wasn't anything big. It was like, "Hey, how are you?" Maybe there was an event going on or whatever. And then leading up to another Valentine's dinner that we had, I would contact him and say, "Are you guys free to come and do our Valentine's dinner?" And he would say yes. So that basically was it. So I think around 2013, it wasn't until around 2013 where we started to speak a bit more. I don't know what it was that necessarily kind of brought us together to speak about a bit more, but we did. We started to speak about things a bit more, just life in general, church, discuss things about ourselves, just finding out a little bit more. Again, there was nothing there, just simply friends. Well, also I thought anyway. And I remember I used to tell Yemi off as well quite a lot, because he was very flirtatious with me, and I remember I told him off. I was like, "Nah, bro, this can't run with me." But yeah, so we just built up a friendship, which was really nice. And one of my cousins, Bissy, she went to Japan and China. So I think Yemi was out there. He was doing something out there with work. So I remember connecting them and saying, "Oh, do you know what? My cousin's out there. She's out there by herself. She was on a volunteering program. Can you connect with her? Make sure she's okay?" Obviously, seeing a familiar face, even though they didn't know each other, but seeing a familiar face from London would kind of, help her out. So they connected as well, and Yemi kind of reached out to her, which was very nice of him. Fast forward to about 2014. We started to speak a little bit more again. We started to speak a little bit more about, life, church, relationship with God, relationships. Generally started to speak a bit more about things. And then I was actually in a relationship in 2014. So I broke up. I broke out of my relationship in 2014, around the April time. So I think I remember talking to Yemi that day, or maybe that week. I don't think it was that day that we actually broke up. So that week, and I told Yemi that, you know, we had just broken up, you know, my ex, and I'm no longer in a relationship. And that same day, or whatever it was that I spoke to him, he came to my house that night and he professed his love for me. The thing is, looking back, it's quite funny, but it wasn't like, I think I laughed at the time, but it wasn't funny. It was very sweet of him, actually, but I didn't see myself like that with him, and I was very fond of him. Of having him as a friend, kind of the brother, the friend zone, or the brother zone, whatever you would call it. I was kind of like, oh, okay, cool, you know, I've just come out of a relationship and I think I want to be single for a while, and, you know, like, I think, you know, the next relationship that I want to go into, I want to make sure it's of God and with the intention of getting married, you know, all that kind of spill. So during that period, so it was about like 2 or 3 weeks where we started to, I told him that, so he was telling me, you know, a bit more about how he felt and things like that. So I said, you know what, I need some time. I need to go away and pray about it, because obviously, you've obviously heard from God, you've spoken to your mentors and stuff, but I haven't. And I've just come out of a relationship, so I want to make sure that I'm doing the right thing. So during this period, I asked for some space, and during the period, he started to send like gifts to my house. So the first gift he sent was a book called, by Gary Chapman, Things I Wish I'd Known Before I Got Married. And then he also sent my favorite perfume. He also sent another book called Captivating, which is a really good book. I'd recommend that for all ladies out there. So he was sending gifts here and then, and I thought obviously it was a very nice gesture, but again, I didn't want to get caught up in the nicety things. So anyway, at this time I started speaking to my mentors about it, and I started to pray as well, and but it was nothing serious. It was just, oh, by the way, you know, mentor, there's this guy and blah, blah, blah. Yemi asked to take me out. And I think at that time I was transitioning from different contracts. So I had about a week off. So I said, oh, do you know what? Well, I'm transitioning from contracts and I've got about a week off. So I can give you this Wednesday. So that basically would have been, that was our first official day. So anyway, fast forward to the Wednesday, he came to my house. And we got the train to London Bridge or something, and I think from London Bridge we went to Waterloo, and our first date basically consisted of taking me to the London Aquarium. Actually, before that, Yemi had asked me to write a bucket list, and I didn't even know what that was. So I had to ask my sister, and I also had to Google it. So then I realized what a bucket list was. So I wrote a bucket list and I sent it to him. And basically the things that we did on our first date consisted of items from my bucket list. So I'd never been to the London Aquarium. I wanted to go there. So he took me to the London Aquarium. He took me on the London Eye. We then went to have lunch at Hakkasan, which is a really nice restaurant. I think during the day as well, I didn't realise that I didn't pack my flats in my bag. So we were walking around quite a lot in Hills. And I was like, Yemi, do you know what? I don't think I'm going to last this whole day. I don't have flats and I'm walking in Hills. And we went down to West End where the shops were. We went to H&M and he gave me his card. He was like, here's my card. Go and get what you need. And I was like, oh, okay, cool. And I was trying to look for the most expensive flats I could find in H&M. But if you ladies know H&M, you know, their most expensive flats are like $24.99 or $29.99. Anyway, charged it to his card, put on my flats, and then from there we went to have lunch at Hakkasan. And while we were in Hakkasan, we started discussing the book that he bought me. So Things I Wish I'd Known Before I Got Married by Gary Chapman. So we discussed it. There's loads of topics for those who have read that book and know of it, and those who haven't, who are in relationships or not in relationships, I'd advise to get it as well. So we discussed loads of topics within that book, and then from there he took me to an art exhibition in Holborn, and then we went to a private lounge cinema. He then took me to a private lounge cinema where we watched a film with Angelina Jolie. I think it was called, I can't pronounce it, it's called Madeline or something like that. But yeah, it was like one of those Disney kind of films, which was really nice. I like kiddies films, I like all of that stuff. He didn't want to watch it. I know he didn't for a fact, because I think he slept off at one point, but I was really glad that he did. So yeah, that was our first date, and obviously you could see that was a really amazing first date. Again, at the end of the day, we went back to, I think he dropped me home, and then he officially asked me out, and I didn't say anything. I laughed. Again, I think everything was just so surreal to me. And he was like, oh, you don't have to give me an answer right now. And I was like thinking in my head, I'm not gonna give you an answer right now, mate. So anyway, we left the night and we left it as that. Again, I went away and I was still praying about us, whether or not we were supposed to be together. I spoke to my mentors. And I think about a week later or 2 weeks later, so I kept him waiting for some time. So he asked to see me again. He asked to take me out again. And I said, well, I'm a bit busy. I've just started my new contract and things like that. But I said, on a Friday, I'm kind of free, but I said that I'm going to night vigil, and night vigil in my church runs from 9 p.m. to 5 a.m. So I said, if you want to see me, you can come to my night vigil, we can go together. Anyway, he agreed, and I told him that it's from 9 p.m. to 5 a.m. and I like to get there on time. So anyway, he came, picked me up, and then we went to night vigil. And when we got to night vigil, we sat in the front as well. So I deliberately did that because I wanted to see if he wanted to sit in the front and things. So we sat in the front. And he's done quite well. He didn't sleep off or anything. You know, we enjoyed the service, the African praise that was going on, the prayers. We're engaging in, you know, everything that was there. And then there was a period as well while we were praying. And while we were praying, I was praying and I just looked down and I saw him praying. And I just felt the peace of God come over me, and that peace of God confirmed for me, because I'd been during this time as well, I'd been praying to ask God to show me a sign, and I took that as that was my sign. And obviously I had previous conversations with my mentors and just speaking to God as well. So everything just came together, and just having that peace while we were at that night vigil just confirmed that he was one for me. So at the end of that night, when he dropped me home, I asked him to ask me the question again. I think he's got a little video of it, so I'm sure you'll be able to see it. So he asked me the question and I said yes. And so 6 months later we got engaged, and here we are today, about to get married. Just under 4 months away, we'll be getting married. Where are you recording the video? Why are
it's
you recording
official.
the video?
She said yes to me. She said yes. I'm so happy. The day is Friday, actually technically Saturday. 1 o'clock. Saturday the 28th of June. She said yes to me after making me wait a week and a day for an answer. But look at that, man, ain't she worth it? She's worth it. She is worth it. I'm so happy.
Okay.
Okay, she wants me to lock it off now. But yeah, if you're watching this, probably watching it on an anniversary or something. This girl, can I put in my
Oh my god.
I've let this go for like almost forever. I downplayed it, but I'm grateful that she's in my life now on that level. I'm so happy.
We thank God.
We thank God. I appreciate it though. Hot stuff though. Jeez. Okay, dude.
You just not recording the thing.
And by the way, we're at the back of the car. We just finished watching, like, okay, we didn't finish.
Half of Good Wives.
Half of Good Wives.
I'll show you.
That's our show. Because she's going to be a great wife.
Amen. Bye, guys.
Yeah. Bye. Signing out.
When Yemi told me that he liked me, I kind of laughed in his face and I told him I didn't like him. I told him I wasn't attracted to him. Number one, I didn't like tall guys. I liked not short guys, but just kind of like my height when I wear heels. I'm 5'4", so maybe like 5'7" or something. I don't know, not too tall, but I didn't like tall guys. So there was that already that I thought, oh, do you know what? I'm not even attracted to you, so I can't even go there. And then also, when I was like 18, I used to date like one of his best friends, like one of his really, really good friends. And I thought, oh, do you know what? We could never go there. Like, because obviously that whole guy date girl code, dating your friends and things like that, you know, you could never date your friends or whatever it may be. And I remember, like, because I still liked his friend up until like maybe a year or so before that. And I used to have discussions with Yemi regarding his friends. Like, we used to talk about him as well. And I was just thinking, this is going to be so weird. But one of the things that I learned about Yemi, which I think really encouraged me in getting to know him, was that he really wanted to pursue purpose. And again, one of the things I said was, the next relationship I want to get into, I want to make sure it's of the will of God, and I want to make sure that it's of purpose as well. So talking to Yemi, I found out that he was very easy to speak to, which was probably why I was talking to him about my ex and my past relationships and, you know, his friend that I used to date as well. I was very open to talk to him about how I felt and things like that. And, you know, he would always give these words of wisdom where he would take himself out of Yemi and be like, put the hat of Pastor Yemi on. So yeah, I thank Yemi for those words of wisdoms and those nuggets that he used to drop. But yes, in that time, I guess one of the things that when I was praying about, you know, whether or not we should be in a relationship to God was, and in terms of a sign, already knowing that the fact that I weren't attracted to him and that I used to date his friends, was already for me like negative. So again, you know, I went to God and I was like, God, these are the things that's putting me off him, and these are the things that he's doing, like, you know, buying me books to read, discussing certain topics with me, opening up my heart as well, so that, you know, I was able to feel comfortable discussing these things with him. You know, and then I was asking God for a sign in terms of whether or not he was the one. And I think beyond all the physical and nice things, such as going out on a fantastic first date, because after that date, who would not want to say yes to a guy like that who had just taken you out to all those places? But I think one of the things that I was very sure of that moment, from probably my past experiences and the things that have happened in my life, was that I knew that I wanted to be in a relationship of purpose, and I knew that whatever the guy that I was going to get with as well, I knew that I wanted him to have a purpose. Whether or not he was in that purpose yet, or, you know, about to step into it, he had to have a purpose at least, so that we could work towards it together. So again, I think just by speaking to Yemi a lot more, asking him the right questions, and not being phased about, you know, going on the London Eye, the aquarium and Hakkasan and all that stuff, and him buying me things, not being phased about that, but being focused on the spiritual stuff. So again, I'm sure when, you know, as I mentioned before, on our second date, when he wanted to take me out, I said I was going to church. Although it may have seemed like I was being a bit too spiritual, I was just trying to make sure that we were doing things like right, and in a way that where I could be in an environment where I could hear from God. So, you know, not necessarily, you know, going out on another glamorous date and allowing that to be, you know, the decision factor, you know, of me saying yes or no to him or whatever it may be. So, a piece of advice I'd probably give to the ladies out there is that, you know, again, when Yemi told me that he liked me and stuff like that, I wasn't looking to be in a relationship. I had just come out of a relationship, and at that time I'd surrendered to God, and I said, you know what, God, I don't even care if I'm 30, 35, 40, whatever it is, until I get married. All I know is that I want your will. So I think the first thing I did was just surrender everything to God, surrender, you know, myself, surrender my thoughts, my desires, what I wanted in the guy. I handed it over to God. Exactly from what I said before. I said I wasn't even attracted to Yemi. I said I didn't like tall guys. He wore a hat quite a lot, which I didn't like. You know, so again, I put my kind of fleshly things, the things that I like, aside, and I opened up more to God, and I allowed him to kind of shape and mold, you know, the things that he wanted me to like. So it wasn't about what I wanted, but it was more about what God wanted, and that's what God knew that I needed. So it wasn't about what I wanted, but what God knew that I needed, and that's what I focused more on. So that's one of the key things that I would say to like the ladies out there, kind of surrendering, making sure you're surrendering everything to God, not trying to hold on to one thing with the left hand and trying to give something to God with the right hand, but literally letting go. To the guys, I would say, again, you know, Yemi had he was accountable to like his mentors, his boys, his relationship with God, being consistent. So, you know, just so that you're not doing things by yourself. You know, if the girl's telling you one thing, you can go back and discuss it with your mentors and, you know, your brotherhood or whoever it is that you have around you. But also making sure that you know what you want. You know, again, we all get into relationships and start dating, and then, you know, all of a sudden we found out that we've been in 5 relationships and they're not going nowhere. But as a guy, I would say you guys make that step, and you find the woman where to be found. So if you know that, you know, she's not the one for you, or you have an inkling that you know she's not the one for you, guys, please don't mess her about. Like, just leave her at hello and leave it at that kind of thing. But yeah, so just want to really thank God for where God has brought us, and yeah, I hope you have learned a lot and about our story together, and I hope you can continue to share in our journey up until when we get married. So yeah, that's our story.